Hi everyone, things are mostly going well. As we are entering the last couple of weeks of the term, there are a few things that I wanted to take a little bit of time to remind everyone about. And I know I mentioned this in the text of the email, but one thing I just want you to remember is this is just reminders to help you out. It is my goal to make sure that everyone is fulfilling the expectations, doing a great job, catching positive attention from the dean and from our academic specialists and from really everyone who peeks in on our courses in our department. So that's kind of the intent this is coming from. These are important reminders, but they're really just to be helpful and to benefit you. Of course, if you have questions about any of these, just let me know. I can address them with you in relation to specifics from your course, or just give basic expectation clarifications, whatever you need. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, but these are some trends that I've seen across our team for the past couple of weeks, so I thought it might be easier to just kind of address them all at once and help everybody out. So let's get started. Oops. Okay, so first we're going to have about feedback reminders, and this is really one of the top things I think that we can focus on as a team, partly because administrators are focusing on it so heavily. And so we're going to talk about a few quick feedback reminders. The first one is don't forget to personalize the feedback. Now, I know that we had a big push, be instructional, share the content, give examples, share resources, and those things are so important, and I absolutely say you've got to have them in there, right? We are here to teach our students through the feedback, but we also want it to be personalized. Now, there's no need to find 17 different ways to explain what a thesis statement should do, and so there are going to be those repeat statements, there are going to be those templates that we use, and those are totally okay. Dr. Morganelli has said it is okay to use a template, but if we use a template, we need a lot of blanks, right? So it really needs to be a template, not a copy-paste comment, and there's a difference. And so we may have, an explanation of a thesis statement is going to be standardized between all students, but then we come in and we share with the student what that looks like in relation to their topic, or what that looks like in relation to what he or she actually did right. That's where those blanks, I don't really know a better term to use for it, but that's where those blanks come in. We need room for the personalized information, and it actually says that we need student-specific information about each of the critical elements, or each rubric element. And so the templates, they save us time. Like I said, there's no need to explain, a topic sentence 12 different ways, because you have 12 students who need that information. So that's fine, as long as we come back in, either through the inline comments, the summary comments, or even adding it on within rubric comments that's been standardized. We need some personalization there, so let's keep that in mind, because I'm seeing great instruction, but we need a little bit more on the personalization side of things. Next, remember, it's important to align our scoring with the rubric, and so Dr. Morganelli, I think, has referred to this as authentic grading. We can't just make up an element, because we think it's important. If citations aren't graded in an assignment, then we can't deduct for that, or if I can't think of anything off the top of my head. But if it's not mentioned in the rubric, then we can't assess a student on it. If we think it's super, super important, we might mention it in the feedback, but we need to make it clear that that wasn't part of the rubric, and so students weren't actually penalized for anything not in the rubric. On the flip side, if it's in the rubric and students were not proficient at it, we must mark that. We can't just say, well, I like the student, they deserve this great score, or well, everything else was so good, so let me fudge a little bit on this completely missing element. If it's not there, it's not there, and the rubric needs to reflect that. If it's there but it needs improvement, the rubric scoring needs to reflect that. And so I know with drafts especially, because we see them as being in progress, it can be hard to give students sometimes a lower score, because we understand, we're writers, we know it's not going to be great for a rough draft, right? And so we still need to be fair, though, and really go by the wording of the rubric. Is the student fulfilling what the rubric says he or she needs to do? Okay, so that's really important, especially for anything exemplary, which we don't have on drafts, but on other things. If we're giving exemplary rating, it needs to be exemplary among college students, and it needs to fulfill those different rubric criteria that are listed there. Average is not the same as exemplary, and so we want to be really careful about that. And then I mentioned this kind of at the beginning, and a lot of you are doing such a good job on this. I'm seeing so many great ways of explaining things and examples, but administrators want us to use the feedback to guide and to teach. We're not just justifying the score. That's, of course, a big part of it. We need enough information there to justify that score, but we also want more than that. So what does the student do next? Okay, the counter-argument was crummy, so what? What should the student do? How can the student improve upon that? Why did that impact the paper negatively? We don't need an essay on each, rubric element, but we want to explain how and why. We need enough depth and detail that the student knows what's wrong and then what to do about it. Okay? So keep that in mind. And then with the timeliness, just remember every student needs an official grade or a zero score by Sunday at 11:59 p.m. If the student, we couldn't open the file and we ask the student to resubmit, we need a temporary zero. If the student has an extenuating circumstance, we've given an extension, we need a temporary zero. If the student did really bad, really poorly on the assignment, and we want the student to redo it, we need to grade what's been submitted, and then we can offer that resubmission opportunity. But we can't just leave a blank hoping that a student will resubmit. And so everyone needs a zero score or an official grade by Sundays at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. And then along with that, remember that the zeros actually need to be submitted by Wednesday. And that's important because that way students can see the impact of a missing score on their grade before the deadline passes. So if they don't notice until, their week is up, oh, hey, that assignment was worth a lot of points, I really should have done the late work, and then it's going to be too late. It also triggers advising to follow up with students. And so we get an added layer of support helping to outreach that student and helping show the urgency of submitting the late work when we get those zero scores on time. So remember, that's not a suggestion or just the best practice. It actually is a policy to get those zeros in on Wednesdays, so keep that in mind. That's all for the feedback. Since we have a discussion this week, a couple of things. Let's think about making them frequent and purposeful. As you know, with our IPR, we no longer are counting numbers of posts and all of those things, but Dr. Morganelli has recommended posting to about half of our students each week. The quality is more important than the quantity, but she wants to see us actively engaged. We expect our students to post throughout the week. We should be in there posting throughout the week as well. Their first posts are coming on Thursdays, so for us to wait until Sunday at 10 p.m. isn't setting a very good example for our students. We want to be there. We want to be present. We want to be a meaningful contributor to the discussion. And if we're waiting until the discussion is almost over, then most of our students are checked out and they're moving on. Dr. Morganelli is really big about getting all of our discussions in within the week, not waiting till the Monday or the Tuesday after, because she says, students likely aren't going to return to that forum. And so if we are waiting too late, even really late on a Sunday night, to start posting, then our students may not be benefiting from the great things that we have to say. And so remember, do it throughout the week. We don't have to post every day or anything like that, but see if you can get in there and start interacting with your students. Set that model of engagement that you want them to have as well. And then be purposeful. I know that it's easy for us to get in there and encourage and thank students and be positive. We don't like to be real critical in the discussions, but we want to go beyond just thanking the students. Our posts should enhance the writing discussion or the research discussion or the peer review discussion, whatever it happens to be, and offer students something that they would miss if we weren't there. We should actually be missed if our voice is missing. We should be purposeful. We should have a plan. We should be sharing our own writing experience or our own strategies. This week with the revision and editing, it's a great time to share some of what you do. What do you do when you're stuck in your writing? How do you get back on track? How do you actually approach revising? What do some of your phases look like as you're moving from revising into editing and then into proofreading and all of those things? So share your experiences, share examples. You can guide, you can redirect, you can bring students back to the Mindbridge material, any sorts of things, but just make sure that we want to make sure that our voice matters in the discussion and students are benefiting from that. And then, let's see, going backwards. General questions. I know that they are really easy to overlook because we are not in the Blackboard portion of the discussion anymore. And so remember to check the forum frequently. We have 24 hours to respond, including over the weekend. So it's really important that we're staying on top of these. It's not just to be picky or anything like that, but it's actually part of our faculty promise to students that we will respond in a timely manner, which is within 24 hours. And so keep an eye on those. If subscribing helps you, subscribe to that forum, and that might be a good option for you. For me personally, I just put it on my Outlook calendar, and it pops up every day with a reminder, because then I have to click that I've actually done it and responded to the student on my calendar to check that off my list. So just find what works for you, whether that's a sticky note or writing it down or subscribing to the forum, and make sure that we're checking those frequently because that is really important for students to hear from us. And then lastly, announcements. And most of you do a great job with your announcements, but remember that we want to offer guidance on specific tasks and assignments. How can you guide your students through the discussion posting this week? Or how can we guide them through the APA and MLA information? And then we can even add additional content to what Dr. Morganelli sometimes calls teaching the gap. Now, we aren't expected to create our own curriculum. We don't want to bring in completely, new ideas that MindEdge doesn't touch on at all. But if you're reading through MindEdge and you think, man, like that just did not say enough about introductions. My students are struggling with introductions. Post an announcement to help them with introductions. If after reading the drafts you think, good grief, my students did not get that Pi method thing at all. This was terrible source integration. Then spend a few minutes and reinforce the Pi method in an announcement for your students. Whatever you're seeing your students need, that's how you can teach the gap. Where you feel either that MindEdge hasn't been quite thorough enough, or where your students are just struggling, fill in some of those gaps for them with the announcements. And then give guidance. I know that a lot of you are teaching 123 for the first time, but everyone has taught before, and so you can probably guess what some of your students' concerns might be. For example, editing without revising in the first place. It doesn't do any much good to edit if you haven't gone through the revision process, because you're going to be fixing commas for no reason. If you're going to have to redo the whole content or organization or focus or whatever it might be. And so try to kind of proactively guide students, maybe point out key things from the rubric that are easy to overlook or miss, and that will really help students in the announcements. So it was a little bit longer than I planned, but I hope that kind of helps show what administrators are looking for with some of these areas, and then maybe bring some things back to our memory that maybe we know, we've just kind of gotten into our patterns, but things can start to slide sometimes when we aren't focusing on it too much. And if you have questions about any of these things, if you want to run ideas by me, if you want to give suggestions about how you think the course could be done better, or even some of the faculty expectations might be changed, feel free to run any of that by me. Like I said, I'm just here to help everyone make sure that they know what's expected, and then to follow through with those so that you can keep having a great experience here. So I will leave you with that, and I hope you all have a nice weekend and keep up the good grading.